From the studios of Atlantic Television Network in Port Harcourt, this is ATN International News. First, the headlines. At least 27 die in boats as boat sinks off Tunisia. Ethiopia Defense Minister visits Somalia. Biden honors Cheney and others with medal. Earthquake strikes Antofagasta in Chile. And police identifies driver of exploded Telsa cyber truck. People trapped in burning building in South Korea. Hanoi declared world most polluted city. In Africa, Tunisia's Coast Guard has recovered the bodies of 27 African migrants after two boats they were attempting to cross the Mediterranean sank off the coast, the National Guard said on Thursday. The boat sank in waters off the city of Sfax, a departure point often used by African migrants. Last month, Tunisia's Coast Guard recovered the bodies of about 30 other migrants in two separate incidents after their boat sank while they were sailing towards Europe. The National Guard said on Thursday that the Coast Guard rescued 87 people who were on the same boat that sank off Sfax. Tunisia is grappling with an unprecedented migration crisis and has replaced Libya as the major departure point for both Tunisians and people from elsewhere in Africa seeking a better life in Europe. Ethiopia's defense minister traveled to Somalia on Thursday, a senior official Mogadishu said, in the first bilateral visit since relations nosedived a year ago over an Ethiopian plan to build a naval base in breakaway Somali region. Somalia State Minister for Foreign Affairs Ali Omar confirmed Aisha Mohammed Musa's visit in a message to reporters but did not say what she was there to discuss. In a post on the X platform on Friday, Ethiopia's Foreign Affairs Ministry said the two countries had agreed to collaborate on the AUSSOM, which is African Union Peacekeeping Mission, and strengthen bilateral relations. Ethiopia has up to 10,000 troops in Somalia to fight Islamist militants from Al-Shabaab, but Mogadishu has threatened to expel them if Addis Ababa did not renounce an agreement it reached a year ago with the breakaway Somaliland region. The preliminary deal called for Somaliland to lease a stretch of coastline for an Ethiopian naval base and commercial ports in exchange for possible recognition of Somaliland's independence. Somaliland has had effective autonomy since 1991, but its independence has not been recognized by any other country. Mogadishu considers it an integral part of its territory and called its deal with Ethiopia an act of aggression. After months of escalating rhetoric and inconclusive international mediation efforts, Somalia and Ethiopia agreed on December 11th, after talks in Turkey, to work together to resolve the dispute and begin technical negotiations by the end of February. The Ethiopian troops in Somalia are there as part of an African Union peacekeeping mission and on a bilateral basis. Regional powers fear that withdrawal would severely weaken the fight against Al-Shabaab and Al-Qaeda affiliates that has been waging an insurgency since 2007. Over 300,000 migrants crossed the Darien Gap into Panama in 2024, 42% fewer than the record number who made the perilous jungle crossing from South Africa a year earlier, Panama's migration authorities told reporters on Thursday. The dangerous Darien Gap connects Colombia with the Central American nation of Panama. An increasing number of migrants were making the journey north to reach the United States. Panamanian President José Raúl Mulino has taken a harder stance on migration since taking office last July, including fencing parts of the Darien white barbed wire, imposing fines and using flights funded by the United States to deport migrants. Officials with Panama's National Migration Service told reporters 302,203 migrants crossed the Darien last year, down 42% from the record 520,085 in 2023. Many Venezuelans have been fleeing a prolonged economic collapse in the once prosperous South American oil-producing nation. We are working every day to ensure that illegal migration does not reach Panama City or the rest of the country, Mulino said in a speech to lawmakers on Thursday. Mulino added that his government has deported 1,548 migrants on flights arranged through an agreement with the United States. However, 209,000 Venezuelans who crossed the Darien last year were permitted to continue with their journey as Panama and Venezuela suspend direct flights after Venezuela's disputed July election. Analysts have warned Panama's measures may not be ultimately successful because they do not tackle the root issues prompting people to migrate, and that they could make the journey even more dangerous. Ecuadorian President Daniel Noboa has decreed that Planning Minister Sarija Moya act as interim vice president until Vice President Veronica Abad arrives in Turkey to represent the country there. The Minister of Government said on Thursday that the latest development in a long spat between Noboa and Abad. The Labour Ministry suspended Abad, who is also the nation's ambassador to Israel, from her post in November, accusing her of committing a serious disciplinary offense by not complying with an order of travel to Turkey due to security concerns during the conflict in Gaza. A court then overturned the suspension in December, and the same day, Noboa ordered Abad to go to Turkey to act as temporary counselor at the country's embassy there. Noboa has designated Moya, who he previously tapped as temporary vice president, to once again act as interim until January 22 or when Abad arrives in Turkey. Minister of Government Jose de la Gasca said during a press conference. Noboa and Abad, who were elected last year to finish their predecessors' terms, have repeatedly clashed. Abad has denied any wrongdoing. Noboa is running for re-election in February and had been seen as unlikely to take an unpaid campaign if it would mean Abad would briefly be in charge of Ecuador. Gasca said on Thursday that Noboa is not obliged to take leave during the campaign. Former Representative Liz Cheney, who balked her Republican Party to strongly criticize President-elect Donald Trump and some of his allies, was one of 20 people awarded the Presidential Citizens Medal, one of the country's highest civilian honors, by President Joe Biden on Thursday. The medal is given to Americans for their service to the country or its citizens, the White House said. Biden, speaking in the East Room of the White House, praises the honorees for courage, leadership, service, and empathy. I think it's pretty damn simple. Our democracy begins and ends with the duties of citizenship, he said. Our work continues. The presidential medals, which go through a less rigorous approval process than medals of honor or acts of the clemency, give a president the opportunity to honor people who have fought for causes he championed. Cheney is a one-time Republican member of Congress who served as vice chair of the House of Representatives Select Committee that investigated the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol by Trump supporters. She received a standing ovation at Thursday's ceremony. In October, she urged Americans to reject Trump's depraved cruelty as she campaigned in support of Democratic presidential candidate Vice President Kamala Harris, who later lost to Trump. Media reports have said Biden is considering a preemptive pardon to protect her from retribution by the next administration. Trump, who takes office on January 20th, said last month he backed a call for the FBI to investigate Cheney over her role leading the congressional probe. Other winners of the medal included Democratic Representative Benny G. Thompson, who served as the January 6th House Select Committee chairman. Attorney Mary Bonauto, who argued the landmark marriage equality case before the Supreme Court. Women's rights activist Eleanor Smith and Ivan Wolfson, a leader of the marriage equality movement. Veterans, healthcare advocates and former lawmakers with close long ties to Biden were also on the list, such as former Democratic Senators Ted Kaufman, Chris Dodd, and Bill Bradley. Venezuela opposition leader Edmundo Gonzalez, who says he resoundingly won a July presidential election but has been living in Spain after a warrant was issued for his arrest, said on Thursday that he will travel to Argentina this weekend. Gonzalez's international tour comes days ahead of the planned January 10 inauguration of President Nicolas Maduro for his third term. Gonzalez has repeatedly said he plans to return to Venezuela to be inaugurated as president, despite the pending warrant for alleged conspiracy and a $100,000 reward for information leading to his arrest, announced earlier on Thursday by the Venezuelan Police Investigations Unit. Gonzalez will meet with Argentine President Javier Milei, who is involved in an escalating diplomatic spat with Maduro's government at the presidential residence in Buenos Aires, Venezuela's top opposition group said on X. Gonzalez shared the post, adding, "Our tour of Latin America begins. First up, Argentina." It was unclear where else Gonzalez planned to travel. Electoral authorities and the country's top court says Maduro won the July contest but have not published full ballot box level tallies of votes. Venezuela's opposition, a number of Western countries and some international organizations have decried the election as non-transparent and have called for the full publication of ballots, with some openly labeling the process fraudulent. The opposition published ballot box level tallies on a public website, saying Gonzalez, who left Venezuela for Spain in October, easily won the contest. Argentina's government said earlier on Thursday it had filed a complaint with the International Criminal Court against Venezuela for detaining a member of its security forces, calling it a forced disappearance. Venezuelan prosecutors say the man is being investigated for alleged links to terrorism. An earthquake of magnitude 6.1 struck Antofagasta, Chile on Thursday, the European Mediterranean Seismological Center, EMSC, said. The quake was at a depth of 104 kilometers, which is 4.62 miles, EMC added. Russian investigators have determined that an oil spill from 2 tankers in the Black Sea last month was smaller than they initially thought. The Transport Ministry said this on Thursday, that the oil leaked from 2 aging tankers that were hit by a storm in December 15th. One sank and the other ran aground. More than 10,000 people have been working to shovel up viscous, foul-smelling fuel oil from sandy beaches in and around Anapa, a popular summer resort. Environmental groups have reported deaths of dolphins, porpoises, and seabirds. The ministry said experts had established that approximately 2,400 metric tons of oil products had spilled into the sea. This is significantly less than the initial estimate, which was based on the account of one of the tanker captains, it said. When the disaster struck, state media reported that the stricken tankers, both more than 50 years old, were carrying some 9,200 metric tons, 62,000 barrels of oil products in total. The ministry said the spill involved heavy M100 grade fuel oil that solidifies at a temperature of 25 degrees Celsius and, unlike other oil products, does not float to the surface but sinks to the bottom or remains suspended in the water column. There are no proven technologies in the world to remove it from the water column. Therefore, the main method is collection from the shoreline, the ministry said. U.S. President Joe Biden has decided to officially block Nippon Steel's proposed $14.9 billion purchase of U.S. Steel. A person familiar with the decision on Friday dealing a probably fatal blow to the contentious merger plan. The Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States had previously referred to the decision to approve or block the deal to Biden, who will leave office on January 20th. Biden's call to block the deal came despite contrary efforts by some senior advisors concerned it could hurt U.S.-Japan relations, according to Washington Post, which first reported the news. The newspaper cited two administration officials who were not authorized to speak publicly at the matter. The source, who spoke to reporters on condition of anonymity, did not elaborate on the reason for the decision, but had previously highlighted the political implications of a deal. A White House spokesperson and a spokesperson of Nippon Steel both declined to comment on the reports. U.S. Steel directed reporters to a statement earlier on Thursday saying it hoped Biden, who will do the right thing and adhere to the law by approving a transaction that so clearly enhances U.S. national and economic security. Nippon paid a hefty premium to clinch the purchase of the number 2 U.S. steel producer in a December 2023 auction, but the deal faced opposition from the powerful United Steelworkers Union as well as politicians. Biden has said he wants U.S. Steel to be domestically owned and run, while President-elect Donald Trump has vowed to block the deal after he takes office in January 20th. In their New Year predictions, high priests from Cuba's Afro-Cuban Santeria religion told followers on Thursday that to watch their health and spending, care for their families, guard against crime, and drink less alcohol amid a punishing economic crisis entering its 6th year. Measures must be taken against increasing delinquency, said the letter of the year by high priest known as Babalaos. Babalaos from the government-recognized Yoruba Association of Cuba and publicly presented on Thursday in Havana. The letters are a prophecy of misfortune, disease, and other events and how to cope with them, which Santeria follows anxiously await every year. Millions of Cubans practice the ritual-filled religion, which fuses Catholicism with ancient African beliefs brought to Cuba by slaves, analyze economic investments and their consequences, eliminate piles of garbage, and care for and respect marital and family integrity, the letter continued. The priest forecast come 5 years into an economic crisis that has stricken Cubans with worsening shortages of food, medicine, fuel, and other goods amid power and water outages and crumbling public transportation and garbage collection. The island's nation communist government blames the economic crisis mainly on U.S. sanctions while admitting it has made mistakes in managing the crisis. Over the years, a few groups have split from the association and some now issue their own letter of the year. Officials on Thursday positively identified the person found dead inside the cyber truck that exploded outside the Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas as a U.S. Army soldier from Colorado. While the FBI said it was not yet clear if the blast was an act of terrorism, the FBI said it had so far found no definitive link between the New Year's Day New Orleans truck attack that killed 15 people and the Cybertruck explosion in Las Vegas later on the same day, which left 7 people with minor injuries. The Cybertruck driver was identified as Matthew Livelsberger, who is 37 years old, an active duty Army soldier from Colorado Springs, and police said he acted alone. Levelsberger killed himself with a gunshot to the mouth, police said, citing a report from the Clark County Coroner Medical. According to a post on X by the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department, Levelsberger was inside the vehicle when gasoline canisters and large firework mortars in the truck bed exploded, police said. Police previously had told a press conference they believed the person found in the truck was Levelsberger, but because the body was burned beyond recognition, investors were awaiting confirmation from DNA. Evidence and medical records. Levelsberger shot himself just before explosives in the vehicle were detonated. Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department Sheriff Kevin McMahally told reporters a handgun was found at his feet. It was one of two semi-automatic handguns found in the cyber truck, both of which were lawfully purchased by Levelsberger on December 30th. Law enforcement also found military identification, a passport, an iPhone, and credit cards in the truck. Levelsberger was assigned to the Army Special Operations Command and was on approved to leave at the time of his death. An Army official said, "The Army Special Operations Command will not comment on an ongoing investigation," a spokesperson said. FBI on Thursday released new surveillance video in a bid to reinvigorate its 4-year-old hunt for a suspect who placed pipe bombs in Washington the night before the January 6, 2021 assault on the U.S. Capitol. The previously unreleased footage from January 5, 2021 showed an individual putting a bomb near a bench outside the Democratic National Committee building. The suspect placed another bomb at the Republican headquarters. Both sites are near the Capitol. Police deactivated the bombs and neither of them exploded. Despite receiving more than 600 tips and offering of $500,000 reward, the FBI has not been able to identify the suspect over the 4 years since the discovery of the bombs on the same day. Supporters of Donald Trump stormed Congress trying to stop it from certifying his 2020 election defeat. "We are really hoping we can jog someone's memory," David Sundberg, assistant director in charge of FBI Washington Field Office, said in an interview. "We do believe there are people out there who do know more than has been shared. It is unclear if the Combs were linked to the Capitol riot, but their discovery nearby on January 6, 2021 diverted police resources and remains one of the enduring mysteries of the day." President-elect Trump 2024 election victory is set to be certified in Congress on Monday before he is sworn in for a second term on January 20th. The FBI said the suspect was about 5 feet 7 inches tall and released a map of the individual's walking route that night. The suspect's mode-script clothing, a gray sweatshirt and pants, and the 15-hour gap between the planting and discovery of the bombs have impeded investigators. The FBI has properly released other video of suspects who wore distinctive black and gray Nike Air Max Speed Tough shoes. In the January 6, 2021 melee at the Capitol, rioters surged past police barricades, assaulting about 140 officers and causing more than $2.8 million in damage. Trump has promised to pardon at least some of the nearly 1,600 people who have been criminally charged for participating in the riot. We'll take a short break. When we return, we continue with the next of the stories.
Every day, our lives are changed by history.
We are one people, all of us.
Leaders, politics.
Nobody's ambition is what
I have fought very firmly.
Natural occurrence, war, and the world economy.
I belong to everybody, and I belong to nobody.
ATN covers it all on ATN Politics today.
The cut-off of Russian gas supplies to Moldova's breakaway Transnistria region has forced the closure of all industrial companies except food producers, and an official said on Thursday. The mainly Russian-speaking territory of about 450,000 people, which split from Moldova in the 1990s as the Soviet Union collapsed, has suffered a painful and immediate hit from Wednesday's cut of Russian gas supplies to Central and Eastern Europe via Ukraine. And industrial enterprises are idle, with the exception of those engaged in food production, that is directly ensuring food security for Transnistria. Sergei Ombolnik, first Deputy Prime Minister of the region, told a local news channel. It is too early to judge how the situation will develop. The problem is so extensive that if it is not resolved for a long time, we will already have irreversible changes. That is, enterprise will lose their ability to start up. Ukraine had allowed Russia to keep pumping gas across its territory despite nearly 3 years of war, and was earning up to $1 billion a year in transit fees, but Kyiv refused to renew a 5-year deal that expired on Wednesday. European gas buyers such as Slovakia and Austria had prepared for long the cutoff by securing alternative supplies. But Transnistria, despite its ties to Moscow and the presence of 1,500 Russian troops there, has been crippled. Man shot dead 12 people in a rampage in a small town in Montenegro before turning his gun on himself early Thursday, authorities said in one of the Balkan nations' worst mass killings. The attacker, named by police as 45-year-old Martinovic, initially shot dead 4 people at a restaurant in Cetinje on Wednesday afternoon after an altercation. He then shot dead 8 other people, including 2 children and his sister. Police Director Lazar Spanovic told a press conference in the capital, Podgorica. Same story. Same story. independently confirm the extent of the attacks or the damage they inflicted. Russia regularly reports such strikes, describing recent ones as retaliation for Kyiv's use of Western-supplied missiles to strike deep into Russian territory. The ministry also reported that Russian troops had downed a Ukrainian Su-27 fighter jet, 97 drones, and 6 U.S.-supplied HIMARS missiles overnight. Indonesian companies will get a one-to-half-month transition period to meet the new B40 biodiesel requirement, Deputy Energy and Mineral Resources Minister Yuliot Tanjung told reporters on Friday. Indonesia had planned to launch the mandatory mix of 40% palm oil fuel in biodiesel on January 1, but industry players said they are still waiting for the technical regulations. The world's largest exporter of palm oil currently imposes a mandatory biodiesel mix of 35%. The transition period started on January 1st, Yuliot said. Market participants are waiting for the official decree detailing the volume of biodiesel that Indonesia will allocate to fuel retailers to gauge how much palm oil exports will be affected. Meanwhile, fuel retailers and biodiesel producers have said they are not able to draw contracts from biodiesel distribution without the decree. Yuliot declined to say when the decree will be released, adding that such details will be announced by the Energy Minister, hopefully soon. Dadan Kosdiana, Secretary General at the ministry, said the approval process for the biodiesel allocation is currently in the final stage. Yuliot reiterated the government's plan to allocate $15.6 million to allocate 15.6 million kiloliters of biodiesel this year. The delay caused the Malaysian palm oil benchmark contract to drop to 2.6% on Thursday. On Friday, it rebounded by around 1% as of 0.632. South Korea's transport ministry has extended by a week special inspections of all 101 of the Boeing 737-800 jets run by the country's airlines as jet engine maker GE joined a probe into the deadliest aviation disaster on the country's soil. The ministry launched the inspections following Sunday's crash of a Boeing 737-800 operated by Jeju Air that killed 179 people. The inspections were supposed to be completed on Friday but were extended to January 10th for additional checks, such as whether airlines spent enough time carrying out maintenance and secured parts for repairs, a ministry official said. The ministry has said it would look at engines, maintenance records and landing gear on all 737-800s, and an airline's operations could be suspended for serious violations. The plane's engines are produced under GE's international joint venture with Safran. While it is unclear yet what caused the disaster, the Jeju Air crash adds to headaches faced by Boeing as the plane maker battles to restore trust with customers following two fatal 737 MAX crashes, a mid-air panel blowout, and a 7-week strike. The Transport Ministry also held an emergency meeting with the chief executives of 11 airlines, including top-ranked Korean Airlines and Asiana Airlines, to discuss measures to enhance aviation safety. South Korea's investigation team said on Friday 2 of its members would leave for the United States next week to analyze the flight data recorder of the crash in cooperation with the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board, I beg your pardon. The team is also studying the plane wreckage and interviewing airport control tower officials. Investigators will analyze data on 107 mobile phones recovered from the crash site, including text messages for clues on what happened leading up to the crash, Yonhap News said. South Korea's presidential guards and military troops prevented authorities from arresting impeached President Yoon Suk-yeol on Friday in a tense 6-hour standoff inside Yoon's compound in the heart of Seoul. Yoon is under criminal investigation for insurrection over his December 3rd martial law bid that stormed South Korea and led to the first arrest warrants to be issued for a sitting president. It was judged that it was virtually impossible to execute the arrest warrant due to the ongoing standoff, the Corruption Investigation Office for higher-ranking officials said in a statement. The CIO officials and police evaded hundreds of Yoon supporters who gathered in the pre-dawn hours near his residence on Friday, vowing to block the arrest with our lives. Some chanted President Yoon Suk will be protected by the people and called for the head of the CIO to be arrested. Officials from the CIO, which is leading a joint team of investigators into possible insurrection, charges related to Yoon's brief declaration of martial law, arrived at the gates of the presidential compound shortly after 7 a.m. on Thursday and entered on foot. Once inside the compound, the CIO and police were outnumbered by cordons of Presidential Security Services (PSS) personnel, as well as military troops seconded to the presidential security, a CIO official told reporters. More than 200 PSS agents and soldiers formed several layers of human chains to block the CIO and police, the official added. While there were altercations and PSS agents appeared to be carrying firearms, no weapons were drawn in the standoff, the official said. Yoon, who has been isolated since he was impeached and suspended from power on December 14, was not seen during the standoff, he said. South Korea's Ministry of National Defense said the troops were under the control of the PSS. The CIO called off the effort to arrest Yoon around 1:30 p.m. due to concerns over the safety of its personnel due to obstruction, and said it deeply regretted Yoon's attitude of non-compliance. GE Aerospace, whose joint venture made the engines of the Boeing airplane that crashed in the deadliest aviation disaster on South Korean soil, joined the investigation as Seoul extended by a week special inspections of all 101 Boeing 737-800 jets. The Transport Ministry extended to January 10th its inspection following the crash of a Boeing 737-800 operated by Jeju Air that killed 179 people. Ju Jong-wang, the Deputy Transport Minister for Civil Aviation, told a press briefing. Investigators are in the process of probing the cause of the accidents by piecing together a puzzle, Ju added. The inspections had initially been set to wrap up on Friday, but another ministry official said further checks would look into matters such as whether airlines spent sufficient time on maintenance and secured parts for repairs. Video images on social media appear to show smoke emerging from the plane's right engine in the lead-up to the crash. The ministry has said it will examine engines, maintenance records and landing gear on all 737-800s, with serious violations leading to suspension of an airline's operations. The plane's engines are produced by GE Aerospace, CFM International joint venture with Safran. A media representative for GE Aerospace did not immediately respond to reporters' emailed question about the investigation. Multiple people are reported trapped on Friday in a commercial building on fire in the South Korean city of Seongnam, south of Seoul, YTN television reported. Reporters showed the video footage of a building that appeared to be at least 8 stories tall, engulfed in a black smoke with a fire burning on the lower floors. There have been no confirmed casualties, YTN said. Vietnam's capital, Hanoi, has been covered in thick smog over recent weeks, putting it at the top of a list of the world's most polluted cities, as the government said it would push for more electric vehicles to alleviate the problem. Levels of hazardous small particles known as PM2.5 were measured at 266 micrograms per cubic meter in Hanoi early on Friday, the highest reading among a list of most populated cities, according to Air Visual, which provides independent global air pollution information via a phone app. The Southeast Asian country, a regional manufacturing hub with one of the fastest growing economies in Asia, has reported severe air pollution in its major cities for years, particularly in Hanoi. The thick smog is mostly caused by heavy traffic, trash burning and industrial activities. We, the elderly, can feel it very clearly when we suffer from respiratory problems that lead to breathing difficulties. Lu Min Dok, a 64-year-old resident of the city, said. The situation seems to get worse recently. Young people are also complaining. At first, I thought it was foggy, but later found out that it is actually fine dust that reduce my vision and make me feel like it is not healthy to breathe, said 21-year-old student Ngoyen Ni Hong, speaking at a meeting with the Transport Ministry on Thursday. Deputy Prime Minister Trang Hong called for an accelerated transition to electric vehicles as part of the efforts to reduce pollution, state media reported. South Korea's acting president Choi Sang-mok vowed to continue trilateral cooperation with Japan and the United States, saying on Friday his country's diplomacy remains steadfast despite an unprecedented political crisis at home. Choi was speaking to the U.S. ambassador to the Asian country and the commander of U.S. Forces Korea as they exchanged views on the bilateral alliance and the incoming administration of President-elect Donald Trump. Choi's office said in a statement, despite the difficult situation, our foreign affairs and security policy will continue to be pursued based on the strong alliance with the United States without wavering, Choi said. He told Ambassador Philip Goldberg and Commander Xavier Brunson that the two countries should make mutually active efforts for cooperation between them and with Japan to continue, according to the statement. Choi, minister, has been acting leader since December 27 after the impeachment of Prime Minister Han Dong-soo, who had stepped in after President Yoon Suk-yeol was impeached and suspended from his duties over his short-lived martial law order earlier in the month. Yoon also faces criminal investigation for insurrection over the December 3rd martial law bid. On Friday, authorities tried to arrest Yoon but failed after a tense 6-hour standoff, strengthening long-strained ties with neighboring Japan. A fellow U.S. ally, has been among Yoon's top foreign policy priorities. And that's the international news for today. I am Francis Neka. Thank you for watching. You can follow us on all our social media platforms, X, formerly Twitter, at Atlantic TV Net, Facebook and YouTube at Atlantic Television Network, Instagram at Atlantic TV Network. Watch us live on our website, Atlantic Network TV. Peace and unity are the pathways to progress. Coming up next is business news.